Good morning, good night, good evening, good afternoon, good day, good morrow, whenever it is that you may be watching this. Um, the day I will be talking about is week 9, day 3, Wednesday, November the 12th, 2025, at LAMDA, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts. This is going to be a long video because it's a Wednesday, so we had 6 classes. But I digress. We'll get through it. So we started out with acting through song, and we jumped right into it because we had to get through 8 people, right? So we went fast. The first person sang I Don't Remember You from The Happy Time by Candor and Ebb. It was a lovely song. Some of the comments and direction was to make it a little more legato, connect it a little more. And then find the happiness in remembering the moments. It's about a love that moved on and you're still in love with the person they used to be, but they're no longer that person. And find the stillness and don't push the notes. Give him and then Johnny gave him a chair so that he had something to kind of stabilize him a little bit, and it helped. Then the next person went. They sang Foundations by Kate Nash. Great use of comedy. Really, really funny song. It's great. He said to think of Stacey Solomon, who I don't know. I'm not very good with music artists. And then to sing the chorus a little more. There's a lot of like talk speaking, and it's talking about like a story about this guy who's a bum. And then lean into the Essex and the antithesis more. Break down the notes and found the voicing. Yeah. So this person just has less experience singing, so it's cool to see how we're all helped and treated differently, you know? So that was cool. Then someone sang Without a Believer, which is a cut song from Waitress that I adore. I sing it to Emma sometimes, so I bawled like a little baby. I wept. I was like, I was like, different. And some good direction was don't get too attached to a movement. He was doing this like multiple times and then it just got stuck there. So kind of bring that around and don't get like too stuck with that. It's great to use a cut because it's a song that people understand because most people know the show, but it's in a different context. And then illustrate the lyrics vocally, find those images, treat it more like musical theater storytelling instead of a pop song. Then the next person went, and it was Temporary from Earthen Myths by, I'm going to sneeze, by Jonathan Buccino, I think. Another heartbreaking song. Such a great song about how everything in life is temporary, and there's some solace in that, but it's also sad. And the direction that Johnny gave her was to walk through the door and to use the pillars in the room to kind of have that. It was a distraction technique to get her out of her head, not thinking about the notes, and just really to sing it and to perform it. It was awesome. Then another person went and sang The Impossible Dream from Man of La Mancha, which is another great song that I totally love, and kind of my philosophy for life, that it's worth pursuing impossible things, that it's worth go and trying to do that which is to strive for an impossible ideal. Loved it. Cried again. I cried so much this rehearsal, this class. I don't know what that means. Taped backwards. Oh. When he brought up the music, it was taped backwards. But someone else was singing that song, so he was able to use that. Or no, actually, it was in a different key, so he was like, maybe not. And so Paul just read it backwards. So it's just like first page, second page, third page. But for you, it would look that way. Anyway. Then commit to the big choices and find that a final note. To dream the impossible dream. Or I think that's what he did. Dream the impossible dream. I think is what he did. So just find that note and sell it and don't cut it short. He was like, dream. So just dream. Amanda plays it at 6:15 in the morning. Whoops. But then dig out the great words like glorious quest and the I emphasis, and then work on that last note and just do it, right? And to not worry about the accompanist. He kept looking back at me like, am I on the time? Am I doing it right? Instead of just like committing and knowing that Paul will follow him because Paul's the genius. Then someone else went and sang a solid country song, Speed Trap Town. And this is my favorite. I've heard him sing. It was just confident and comfortable. But it was very leaning into the country of it. And so Johnny was like a little more diction in the voice and to sing more and to illustrate this a little more, right? Because like, where are you? And then paint the picture for someone who doesn't know the song. Oh, then something I've noticed while I've been at LAMDA is I've never heard or gotten the note to not look down, which is something that's always been a pet peeve of mine, and that was drilled into me by my mom, because once you look down, you cut yourself off from the audience, and the eyes go into the soul and all of that. There's been a lot of people have been looking down, and so that's interesting. But that was good. And then they tried it with him like sitting in a car and then getting up and illustrating it. Then the next person went and started with Go the Distance, and this guy's classically trained opera, right? So, excuse my, I feel like my nose is a little runny. Yeah, and he killed it, and he brought more of that pop sound. So instead of, I can go the distance, I'll be there someday, I'll be there someday, the straight tone and the more spread. And it's against everything like that he wants to do and has trained. It's like that's all wrong, but killed it. And we all were like swooning and stuff. It was wonderful. And we also had a little more time with him because, you know, no notes, make it more pop. He did, killed it. And then he sang The Impossible Dream also. That was another song he had prepared. And same idea. But one thing that Johnny said about Go the Distance was also don't give away too much too early, right? Build up to like these big notes or these big moments. And then our last person went and they sang Both Sides Now by Jory Mitchell. And make sure that it's understood like by the words, and more floatiness on the lyrical part, and paint the picture. And it was another beautiful song. We were kind of pressed for time because we were trying to get through so many people. So so we stayed over a little bit because we were all in Call It House. We were in Call It House East Studio, then Call It House Top Studio, then Call It House West Studio. And just like bum bum bum, which was so nice to be there all morning because we didn't have to run around. And it's been rainy this week. So then we had combat. Okay. Now this is going to be the tricky one. Let's see. 9 minutes for one class? Not bad. Okay. So we have moved on to a new weapon. The saber, right? So remember, fencing was all like this. It was knuckles up. It was all on the wrist. Or it was knuckles down, knuckles down, yeah. Knuckles up or knuckles down. And you're like, ta-ta-ta-ta. It was all about distance and range. So now we're moving to a saber, which looks a little bit like this. So it has the knuckle guard as well as the cup. And then it has historically a thicker blade, and one side is flat and the other side is sharp. So it's a slashing weapon. There is one stabbing gesture, haha. There's one stabbing, thrusting move, but it's not done a lot. It's just done once, and this was traditionally done on horseback, and so that changes things as well, because whenever you're doing it, you're in a very wide stance because there would be a horse underneath you when you're doing it standing, and this is like the film. This is the film style of swordplay. This is what most people do in film and show. Yeah. And also, it's an upright thing. Your chest is always up because there's a horse's neck and head in front of you, so you can't lean. So it's all upright, and it's all pretty straightforward. So let me teach you the guards. Oh, also the way you hold it on saber is you put your thumb on the top, just like this, and then the rest of your fingers follow underneath. And then here's the guard. It would cover your hand like that. And then you lead out with your thumb because you want to always make sure that one, the knuckle guard is blocking the oncoming attack so they don't strike your knuckles. Apparently Rodney, when he was competitive, he used to win a lot by striking knuckles. So you want to keep your knuckle guard on the oncoming side. So if they're coming from this side, okay, thumbs down, or coming from that side, your knuckles are in the way. And then you're leading out with your thumb because that thumb is going to direct where the sharp end of the blade is. Okay. So it's still, normally it would be just like this because you would have a horse between your legs and you would be upright and you would be slashing, right? Slashing someone here and slashing someone there, and it's very this fluid motion. But since we're not on a horse, but they still were practiced on foot, we would take this, but just angle it a little more, but still have that wide stance. I feel like no, I'm right. Yeah, definitely that way. So there are 8 different blocks as well, but 2 of them are just a variation of 2 others. So there's like 6 with 2 variations. So it's 1, just like the same. And this also, you don't care about protecting the center line and always having your tip protecting the center line and threatening the eyes. But you want it more straight up because you're trying to protect yourself from a slash. So if someone's slashing you, you want it to be more straight up and closer to your body because it's easier to get your arm out of the way because these are heavier weapons as well. So 1, 2, 3. Also notice that my knuckles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is up here because they might come straight down at your head. 5. And this you want like right above your head. You shouldn't be able to see your sword or your saber. And then 6 is a reverse. 6. And then 7 is tilted down. So if they were slashing you like this, they would hit the blade and it would skirt down to your side. Okay, and then 8 is the opposite. And you almost are just holding this with your pointer finger and your thumb. So right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, and then that's to attack a slash or slash. And in fencing, you're aiming for eyes and groin. As like the death spots, we aim for shoulders and groin because we don't want to actually aim for the eyes in stage combat because that's hard to protect, and if you make a mistake, you can blind someone. But so now we're aiming for hip and shoulder, because that's where you would aim more. So it's very small, like hip, shoulder. Like there's a very small difference in where you're aiming. So if I were to attack 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or is it the other way around? Yeah, maybe 7, 8. No, yeah, 7, 8. I was right. Okay. And then we did this practice where we did this drill where first we went through them, and then we did the same thing we did before, where you do an attack, and then defend. Attack, then defend, attack, then defend. And we did that for 1, so attack, defend, attack, defend, attack, defend. And this one, unlike with the foil, you don't want to reach all the time and lean your torso forward because you're upright, right? You're on a horse, so it's all very ha. And so that's one of the reasons why this is great for film, because you're upright and it's very on one plane, so it's easy to follow on a camera. And so another thing we did, and then while they're defending, one person's attacking and defending, attacking, then defending, attacking, then defending. The other person is defending, sinking into, defending and sinking into an attack. Defending, I didn't give myself a lot of space. Defending, sinking into attack. Defending, sinking into attack. Defending, sinking into attack. And then we did that with ones, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? And it has this like fluid motion. So I'm slashing and defending, slashing and defending, slashing and defending, slashing and defending. And then we did it with 2, which is slash, defend, slash, defend, slash, defend. So it's kind of like a punch. And it's just ba, 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 ba. And so it has this really quickness to it. And that was super fun. And yeah, that was the gist of it. It was all the beginning. Here's my drawings. I actually like these ones. I think they make generally good sense. So, yeah, then we moved to historic music. And we did a warm-up of a siren, a trill, me's, and e's, and we did V something, and then we did the me, and then me, me, something like that. I don't know. Then we did another tongue twister. This one was difficult again. Apparently Graham's gonna make a book, and so I don't want to just keep saying them because he makes all these. But it was another tongue twister, and then we did another canon from Blow Wind Blow by Gilbert de Meredith, which also don't want to take so much information. I'll take a picture of it though. No, wait, that's a different one. Ah, there it is. Yeah, Blow Wind Blow by Gilbert de Benedetti. Anyway, and that was a 5-part canon, so that was fun. Then we worked a little bit on the Carol of the Bells, which will be performed a cappella. And the winter concert is apparently back on. So we are preparing for that. And then we worked on Hush a little bit. And then we did Fine Next for Ladies. And we just kind of went through our songs. I feel like we should spend a little more time on... Well, I feel like I need a little more time to work on Carol of the Bells because that's the one we're actually performing. But alas. Then we had lunch. Then we had artistic development. and we had a fascinating conversation about casting and um, and how to cast, especially in taking in consideration um, protected classes of people, race, gender, religion. Religion, not so much, but it could be, for example, somebody who is Muslim and is wearing their hijab or other head coverings, something like that, and how to accommodate for those. And so it's just that idea. And we brought up a case study that last summer at the Globe, the artistic director, Michelle Terry, cast herself as Richard III. And the Disabled Artists Alliance called her out on it and strongly disagreed and said that the role of Richard belongs to the disabled community, and they asked for her immediate removal in casting. Very strong language, very strong requests. Demands, really. It wasn't a request. And so then we read Michelle's response as well. And I would like go through and read the whole thing, but I'm worried about time and air thing. But the gist was that it felt like a difficult move. But the question is, it's not a simple conversation, right? Because what she said was that she's exploring the misogyny in Richard III and the misogyny of our world. And so what if someone was so hated and unliked and unloved not because of a deformity in Richard's word, or not because of a disability, but because of their womanhood, right, and their femininity. And so it was taking that look at it, and just we saw another example, which a couple years ago, a black actress played Richard and looked at it through the lens of race, and she also was in charge of production and cast herself, and did not get, at least not near the same amount of backlash. And so it's interesting, like, where questions are. Like, some of the questions asked was, would it have been better if Majil was like, I want to play the part, so I'm playing it, instead of kind of this unclear justification. And her response was just a little meandering, and it didn't feel like she had a full purpose yet. The production itself eventually became, when they actually put it on, was done with a complete cast of women and non-binary people. And so it seemed like that could have been in response to the DAA. And so it's all super tricky, because as we read the response, most of the class was like, oh, that's a bad response, or that's tone deaf, or that's not thinking. Phrases like the part of Richard will come around again, and that they're really committed to listening and representing groups of all people, and the ideal of that anyone could play anything. And so it's all messy. But we were just talking about that, because Ollie knows her professionally, like has seen her work and stuff, but knows her partner well, and has talked to him about this. But LAMDA is committed to have these conversations, because there's so many different questions. The black woman who directed and cast herself as Richard was Adjoa Ando, Adjoa Andoh. Yeah, some of the phrases that the DAA used were, you can't take off a disability in the dressing room, and that their life is not a costume. And as a drama school, And then we talked about the difference between academic and professional setting, right? Like the industry versus a school. At drama school, should we try different castings and push different boundaries and just see things where nobody's losing a job over it, but you can explore that? Um, and they have. There are two um, there are two black women at LAMDA who are very interested in this conversation. Gemma, who used to be in charge of the foundations program but directed our midsummer first presentation, our first project, and then Karen, who's doing our scene study class. And it's interesting because for black students and students of color, almost every role that they'll play in drama school was written or intended for a white person and a white character. And so should not it also be even in asking white students to play characters that aren't white, that are characters of color? And we brought up the Viola Davis quote that asked if Juilliard had prepared her to be a good actor, and she said it prepared her to be a good white actor because all the roles she learned and played were white characters that she was just playing, you know. And so she can add her blackness to it and she can add her experience and culture, but it's not the character as written, right? It's her bringing herself into it, which is fine, but it's constantly, you know, battling that, and white actors don't have the same issue. And so there's questions of should we be doing more like Tennessee Williams, and should we do other things? And on this note, that LAMDA has had projects in where white actors have played Othello, and they've explored that a little bit to very varying amounts of success, you know. And it's also interesting because I recognize my situation. I I am represented I am representative of the group of people who have been heard the most and whose opinions and life experience has been put at the forefront for Western history predominantly, right? And so in these conversations, I have thoughts and I have questions, but um, but I want to listen and understand other people's experiences and opinions first, because I think that's more important for me in this moment. I don't feel like my opinion is less than. I don't feel um, like I can't talk, but I do feel like listening is more of a priority to improve my overall perspective and thoughts. So it was a great class. I'm really glad that we touched that, especially since four of the students in my group are playing Richard, and um, and only one of them is disabled. I'm not even sure he would classify himself as that, but he has some scoliosis, and so um, and so the question, like where does acting begin? Because it's like accents in the same way. Like we put on accents. Is that, I know it's a lesser degree because you can change accents and stuff, and you can't change race, and you can't change um, disabilities. But I think there's also power and importance in playing something that is opposite from you and is a totally different experience, because theater is the art of empathy. And so isn't there value in honestly and authentically portraying a character that has a totally different experience than you to improve your empathy and understanding of that those types of people? I think it's a fascinating idea. But then the industry versus the like education is super important as well, because in the industry, if you cast a white person as Othello, you're taking a black person's job, kind of a thing. And where they already have limited jobs, um, in the industry because there's not a ton of shows that are written for them, and because of biases and tradition and all of these different things, then that role should go to someone, and then you're taking it from them, kind of a thing. It's like, yeah, but apparently there was a an interesting production of Othello where most of the cast was black and people of color, and then Othello was played by Patrick Stewart. And so it's interesting to kind of flip those things around because it feels like a lot of the time when you do a gender swap or something, to you end up gender swapping everyone else, and then it ends up being the same amount of people. So if the point was to have more women in the cast and you gender swap one person, then there's another person, and it gets like tricky, you know. But it's a fascinating idea, and I'd love to explore it more. And I think the main things to keep in mind is, one, communicate with those of the community. Don't just go out and do certain things, especially on a large stage, without communicating with the people who are affected by it. And two, you got to be honest with it, and you got to be sincere in the way you're portraying any of these things. Because if you go about it in any stereotypical, any like a shortcut way to it, it's problematic as well. Anyway, that was wonderful, fascinating. Then we had awareness movement, and we started with someone who in another class had like an arm injury or something. So we did an arm drop where you hold someone's arm and then you slowly kind of like lift it up. And the whole point is to have the person having their arm held, like you're holding it like this. The idea is holding and lifting the bone is to allow the other person to actually like hold it and like surrender your weight to it. And then they slowly bring it down, and you'll see like where you let go of it, like there'll be that kind of like drop. But just the idea is to just like allow it to slowly go down and to take off all any stress or holding that you have. And then we laid down and listened to her talk for a little bit. I think I fell asleep. I'm trying here. And then we stood up and we wrote, kind of like shifted our weight in the circle, like at the ankles, so it wasn't like our body like this, but we were all being like quite straight and just kind of rotating our weight around and seeing how our feet accommodated for that weight change. And then we did it with one foot, and then the other one foot with like the other foot out for support. And then we paired up and observed each other, like standing up and sitting down on a chair, just standing and sitting, standing and sitting. How do you do that? And then we talked about really using your weight, like counterbalance, so that in standing up, you're not you're not like jumping up or anything, but you can just use your legs, and there's no like moment of falling or loss of balance, but just the whole time, just with counterbalance, you're leaning forward and standing up. And then you had your partner hold your knees still and kind of push against that a little bit, because to stand up, your knees have to go back and up. And then to excuse me. And your whole back goes forward, right? And then your head goes down and up. Well, forward and down first, and then whoop, right? And so we really focused on like aligning and using our spine to like thinking of it as just the hinge at your hips. And then Our partner held our knee and the back of our pants and acted like our femur was just a singular line to help us stand up, and we felt the difference of just like trying to lean into our knees with them not moving, and having that support and that ability to adjust them. And then we sat some more and observed ourselves, and saw if there was any change, which I don't know. My person had really great posture to start, and maybe some more fluidity. I'm not sure. But he said that I was using the weight better. And then we were trying to not like have that moment of falling, and we tried sitting some more. And then we sat, and then we tried to keep wobbly knees the whole time we were sitting, or shaking our head the whole time we're sitting. And then we imagined that our feet were on a scale. And we wanted the needle to just slowly move up and increase with our weight, instead of having a moment where it would jump. So just even gradual growing pressure. And then we tried it with some text or a song, and we discussed it. And all our movements are, excuse me again, are interacting with the ground and pushing against the ground, which is fascinating. And then our homework is to explore the sitting and standing without that falling sensation, right? At what point do you just drop into the chair, and can you like be very specific with it and notice how your pelvis rotates and how your legs move and everything. And it was just really bringing super purposeful attention to our bodies, which is neat. Then we had George's class, and we worked on Richard III, which is my choice. Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our something alarms, dang it. I have it like 90% done. I need to run it and get it really into my bones. Our stern alarms change to merry meetings. Dreadful marches to delightful measures. War's grimmage front hath smoothed his wrinkled... No, war's grimmage... Grim-visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front. And now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I that am not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking-glass, I that am rudely stamped and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph, I that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, disformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world scarce half made up, and that so lamely and unfavorable that dogs bark at me as I halt by them. Why I, in this weak piping time of peace, have no delight to pass away the time, unless to look at my shadow in the sun, and descant on mine own deformity. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair well-spoken days, I am determined to prove the villain, and hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I laid, inductions dangerous. By drunken prophecies, libels, and dreams, to to set my brother Clarence and the king the one in deadly hate, the one against the other. And if King Edward be as true and just as I am subtle, false, and treacherous, this day should Clarence closely be mewed up about a prophecy that says that G of Edward's heirs the murderer shall be. Dive thoughts down to my soul. Here Clarence comes. 85% there. I need to clean it up and work my jammed lines and whatever. Anyway, so George realized, because he was working Troilus and Cressida, and it's hard. It's got a lot of lists and a lot of different things. And so, and we really need to practice working the room, finding our quadrants and addressing them, right? And being just on top of it. Stay active, right? Have bend in the knee, have purpose and action to your stance. Don't just, now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York, right? Remember, a caesura, when there's a period in the middle of a line, means you don't want to be interrupted or you're excited, right? Because you can't even wait to the end of the line to start a new thought. Punctuation at a lot of end lines means it's very matter of fact. It's like, this is that way, that is this way, this is that, and that is this, right? Lots of enjambed lines are the flow state. We're riffing now. It's going well. Also, treat a dash like a comma. And then we all practiced saying the first two lines. Just two lines. I don't think we all did the first two, did we? We might have. I think we did. We all did the first two lines. Just to show that we could work it in jammed line. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York, right? You need to have a change on that in jammed line of intonation, and you need to have a breath before the second line instead of after the first. So, now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York, right? It needs to be connected and feel like one thought. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York, right? And that breath doesn't have to be super noticeable either. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried, right? Then take one step into the circle to prepare to deliver. Allow for change in intonation on that second line. Work your flanks. So work them. Be able to bend your knees and be able to address everyone around. And slow your roll. And it's fascinating when you're just given a single word or a verb, how that changes people's performances. And I'm just going to say the rest of the things that George said, because I just wrote down his ideas. But make them come to you. Don't stoop down to us. More mixed bag of knots in second half, right? You want these ideas. These are just Georgisms. Bolder choices for resolutions to practice and break up. I think that just focusing on the end of the line and those resolutions, and it's not necessarily how you would perform it. It's not very much like Richard, but how would you play with that? And then physically snatched. So glorious. He said physically do that. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York. And just doing that action gets it in your body a little bit, that the next time you don't have to do that, but you can feel that. Made glorious summer by the son of York. Right? Another one was channel your inner George. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York. Something like that. I'm doing it with and stern alarums change to merry meetings, pitch and intonation. And then the first line is always traditionally done as a trochee, right? Now is the summer of our discontent, instead of now is the summer of our discontent, right? And so George was like, try it without a scissor, without a trochee. And then that person who was practicing at the time was like, but it is a trochee, isn't it? It's like, yeah, sure, like probably, but like what would it be like if it's not? That's a choice. What does it mean? How does it change it? Now is the summer of our discontent made glorious summer by this... I keep saying summer. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York. How's that different? Practice it both ways. Like practice it with a trochee and with not, and see how it changes and how it feels. Feet nice and wide. Give a good foundation. The number one job of the prologist is to get the audience's attention, to grab them by the proverbial collar. So how can I just come in and now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by the son of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. And now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments. And then he really helped us paint these pictures too, right? Bruised arms, I thought was like actual arms that had been hurt and they were hung up. It's like, check me out, a little bit like Henry V. And these wounds, but he was like, will strip their sleeves and show that these scars. On that day, these men will strip their sleeves and show their scars and say, these wounds I had on St. Crispin's Day, right? So I thought it was like that, but no, it's like your armor and your weapons. It's like, I want to see the guts and the brain matter on your sword as proof of your glorious defeat of the enemy and all that. So that was neat. And then someone got the note to channel the person who had channeled George originally, and he was like, what? You want me to be like him? It's like, then it's like, how was he? And he said, well, he was like George. Okay, well then channel George. And then he did it. It's like, that was George at like a 5. Try to channel George at least a 9. And then he did. And then it's like, that was lovely, but was it like Richard? No. And so he then took him into his office and gave him one word and totally raised the stakes and changed it, right? The language will bear it. And it had an opinion. It had purpose. Have purpose to speak. Have an objective. Why am I saying what I'm saying? Have a very firm foundation to launch from. Oh yeah, and then we finished. We just went clockwise around everyone doing the first 2 lines, and a couple people did a couple more. And then an opinion about the thought, not a... Oh yeah, so you want an opinion about your thought, not just a tacked on idea of your characterization. So I could be like, Richard's mad, so I'm going to play this mad. Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by the son of York. Right? That's just mad. But how does he feel? Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by the son of York. That, like, the idea is there, you know. And then don't take your foot off the gas on and off, right? Your voicing, keep it constant, but add variation with pitch and pace and intonation, right? So don't be like, now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in deep bosom of the ocean buried, right? Just if you do that with like the voicing, it's just hard to understand. And then physically display the images to the audience. That was a note for somebody. And stern, our bruised arms hung up for monuments. Our stern alarums changed to merry meetings. Dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I that am not shaped for sportive tricks, right? And then let it take 27 minutes. It never takes that long, but just take your time, enjoy it. Get off your hip. Like if you're leaning on one side, center yourself. Oh, and then there's a student who gets on his own case all the time, and he was like, "Hey, George says you're doing great. You need to write that on a post-it note and put it somewhere," because he just gets in his head. And then if you mess up the quadrants, okay, whatever. You've messed up the quadrants. Move on. That's not a big deal. Don't be like, oh, I did a quadrant, and then panic, right? Our homework next week is our dress rehearsal. We're going to do like the first half or the first third of it. And that was Wednesday. Some important, and then after I did a musical theater little club, I think we're going to sing 12 Days to Christmas from She Loves Me. 12 days to Christmas, plenty of days. These are the people who shop in time, plenty of time. These are the people with time to spare who shop at their convenience. 12 days to Christmas, 12 days to Christmas. Look at the way they do their Christmas shopping. They can go shopping and still remain calm and sedate. These are the people we envy and the people that we hate. Dun, dun, dun. Thank you, please call again, do call again, thank you. Anyway, so that was the day, long, and since yesterday I saw the importance of being earnest, I was tired. But the days continue and life goes on. Thank you, love you, hope you have a wonderful life day, and many blessings to you.